We've got some.
Hey, I'm Luis.
And I'm Luis.
And you're listening to the Content is Profit podcast.
We spent the last 4 years learning the strategies and techniques from some of the top marketers in the world on how to create content that turns into profit. And today, we're bringing them to you so you can take action immediately and start creating real content momentum.
If you'd like to learn more about how to turn your content into profit, go to contentisprofit.com. Oh, yeah. Welcome, another Monday, another great guest at Content is Profit. Today we have someone with a profile that we don't usually interview, a copywriter. Trust me when I say you'll want to pay attention.
Oh, yeah. Throughout our entrepreneurial journey, we have learned the importance of copywriting and how it goes beyond pretty words. Today's guest is the creme de la creme when it comes to helping moms get started with freelancing writing.
Check this out. She has helped over 250 women start earning money as freelance writers in 2020 during COVID.
Oh, yeah.
That's not all, though. She has written copy for multiple seven-figure funnels, but her most epic achievement is probably the fact that she is the mom of 5 humans, which, according to her, are still speaking to her.
She has her own basketball team, guys. That is parenting goals right there. Please welcome successful freelance mom and master ink slinger, Abbi Perets.
Wow. So I know I said that my 5 kids are all speaking to me, but my middle son may not be speaking to me at the moment. He's very angry, but we'll move past it. He's 17 and they turn on a dime. So there you go.
Okay, we were all 17 once. We know how it is, you know.
Yeah.
We live on our feelings, so it's okay.
You still live on your feelings that you're not 17. But anyway, I mean, don't worry. We'll send them a lot of virtual hugs from our side. We thank you so much for being here with us. I know we have a time change. Where are you joining us from today?
I live in Israel and it is 7 hours ahead of Eastern time. So it is 7:15 p.m. here.
Yes.
Wow.
Sounds good. This is so exciting. I love the possibility that we can have conversations with amazing entrepreneurs, amazing people creating this incredible change all around the world because of the connection that we have. So, Abbi, why don't you share a little bit of your story? You know, we had this call a few weeks back and you know, you were this behind the scenes person, right? And then you have like the behind the scenes, but like fuel person to a business, and you have this like need. You're like, I need to help more people, right? And this is where it comes in, and you're creating this incredible impact with amazing women today. What like, how did that start? How did your business start?
Yeah, well, okay, so it kind of took a pretty circuitous path. When I had my first baby 21 years ago, I was working at the time in a small marketing agency. And I didn't want to go back to work in an office. I wanted to be at home with my baby and, you know, spend time just watching her like open and close her hand and be like, wow, I have fingers, right? Like that was so cool. And I didn't want to do anything else. So I decided I would be a freelance writer. I had no idea what that meant, what I was going to do, how I was going to get paid. But I figured I am intelligent. I can figure this out. And that's what I started doing. Back in the day, before we had Google, we had Alta Vista, which was not a great search engine. And so,
I remember Alta Vista. You remember Alta Vista?
I don't think I remember. Alta
wow.
Vista.
Yeah.
That's a very so I went to the local public library and checked out a whole bunch of books on starting a freelance writing business. And I read them all. And I checked out a whole bunch of books on copywriting, and I read pretty much everything there was to read, like old school style, like learning about copywriting from from the old masters, from anyone who was writing print ads, Madison Avenue, all that kind of Mad Men stuff. I read everything about that back in the day because there weren't online courses to just take you step by step and show you the path. So I put together my own education through that. And over the years, I had a bunch more children and I needed the flexibility that came with freelancing. And I kept it up. I kept, just kind of growing and learning more on my own. And whenever a client would say to me, "Can you do this?" I'd be like, "Absolutely, I can do that." And then I would like go to my network and be like, "Who can teach me how to do this? Where can I find a book about this? How can I learn this?" And I would learn it and do the thing. And I made pretty consistent income, but it was around, like $4,000 a month. I wasn't working full time because I had all these kids and I was doing things and I was pretty happy. And in 2013, my kids were all finally in like full day programs. I was starting to think about doing something bigger, taking on more hours. And I want to say too, to this point, I hadn't really thought of myself as a business owner, certainly not an entrepreneur. I was very clearly in the camp of freelance writer. And so at that point, I was ready, to take on bigger projects, work more hours, have more of a steady schedule. And right then is when my middle son, the one who is mad at me right now, got sick. And literally like on a Thursday, he came home from school with bruises on his legs and arms, and we couldn't figure out where they came from. Took him to a doctor. Thursday night, we were in the hospital in the emergency room, and they were like, "Do you want some tea?" And I was like, something is very wrong if they're offering us tea in the emergency room. Wow. And by Friday morning, they told us, "Your son has cancer. Your son has leukemia." And so we started this whole crazy 2-year journey where, and I called all my clients. By Monday, I had called all of my clients and told them I'm out. Like I'm returning deposit checks. I'm handing off materials to people. I can't work. I got to take care of my kid. Yeah. So I did that for a couple of years, and that sucked. And then in like 2016, they told us, he's better now. He can go home, and you can go home and you can live your life normally. And it's kind of like when you have a baby and you spend all this time, at least when you're the woman, like people are like, "You're pregnant, and here you should know 9 million things about being pregnant, and you should know 9 million things about giving birth." And then they hand you a baby and they're like, "Here, take it home and try to keep it alive." Right. So it was kind of like that at the end of cancer treatment. They're like, "Here, your kid's better. Take him home now." And I was like, "I'm sorry, what you want me to just take him home? What?" Yeah. So that was a little weird. And I was in this really dark place. And I did not have the patience or like the headspace to go back to client work right away. There was no way that I could do it. Now, at the same time, I was in this Facebook group for moms of kids with cancer. And at the time, I'm fortunate. In Israel, we have universal health care. So my son's cancer treatment was all covered. The US does not have the greatest healthcare system in the world. Let's just put it that way, right? So a lot of people in this Facebook group were talking about, I can't keep the lights on. Like I can't keep groceries in the fridge because having a kid with cancer is not at all compatible with keeping a normal job. You can't keep a regular schedule. Your kid is in the hospital. Your kid is having tests. There's no, they can't be on their own. So I started very informally teaching some of these women, hey, you could do some freelancing and make some money. And it was literally just me and my personal email address, like sending out email once a week, like, "Here, try these things and then do this and tell me what happens." And they started writing back and saying things like, "Oh my God, I made $500 and we bought groceries," and that was kind of amazing. And when I was in this very, dark place where I didn't want to, it was the first time in my life that I understood how people can be sad enough to kill themselves. Like you just don't have enough energy to get out of bed and you don't want to keep being alive. And this was something that pulled me out of that and gave me a reason to get up in the morning because I was doing something outside of myself. I was helping other people. There were people who were counting on me. And that was kind of amazing. And so from that horrible, dark place was born one of the coolest things in my life. Successful Freelance Mom was born out of that. And since 2017, I've been helping other, mostly women, mostly moms, a couple of really good guys in there too, but mostly women, mostly moms, break into freelance writing and then build and scale successful freelance writing businesses. Along the way, I rediscovered my own passion for copywriting. As I was creating email sequences and sales pages to market my own programs, I was like, "Oh, I love this." And I started offering that as a service to other online course creators. And so that's, so those are the two things that I do now. I teach moms how to get started and grow and scale their businesses. On the client side, I serve a small number of clients with amazing email sequences to help them scale sales. So.
Ooh.
Wow.
Wow, Abby, thank you so much for sharing the story and all your adventures and what happened with your family. I know that might not be a very easy thing to share, so I appreciate you being so vulnerable and sharing it with us, because it brings a lot of perspective, right? We're
Right.
on our day to day. There might be some people, or even us, right, listening today, that might not see that on our day to day, right? Or perspective. Right? We come from Venezuela, third world country. We've shared this story many times, but we've lived through some things, and I'm sure everybody listening have lived through those things as well. And we appreciate you sharing that, because maybe we can put ourselves in those shoes and be like, wow, like, let's be thankful for what we have today. Like, look at, maybe bring you in as an example to follow, your relentlessness, and the fact that you took in the community and then you started to serve. That was the first thing that you did. You served, you helped, and then that brought you back so much more. So it's incredible. So thank you so much for sharing all of that.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you, Abby. Thank you for sharing your story. And something that stood out to me, I mean, besides the whole story, was the fact that you found this purpose in that dark time, right?
Yeah.
And I'm sure it wasn't like you found the purpose and then everything was okay, right? Like, people have their ups and downs, even when they have clear goals, like when they have some sort of clarity. I would say is maybe easier, or at least the path, right? But there's always ups and downs. So how do you keep yourself aligned with that purpose once you found it, right? Because I just want to bring this to light in case somebody else finds themselves right now in a difficult situation, especially with everything that has happened, that maybe they have a goal that they want to achieve, but they have found themselves maybe not being as consistent as they would want to.
Sure. Yeah. So a couple of things come to mind. One is last year, in the very beginning of 2020, very, very beginning, like January, I wanted to launch a new program, and I wanted to launch a new program to a new audience. I wanted to launch a really intense email course, like really digging in on the copywriting and on the emotion that goes into email and all of that. But I wanted to do it. My core audience, of course, is these moms who want to get into freelance writing. And I wanted to launch this other thing to an audience of business owners who weren't necessarily women, weren't necessarily moms, and not my normal audience. Well, let me tell you, I launched it and 0 people bought it. Okay. So 0. Okay. And so that was really hard. And I had started off 2020 with a goal to bring in $300,000, which was going to be double what I had done the previous year. So that was January, 0. And then February, there was something that I was thinking about doing and then I didn't do. I don't remember all the details. And then March came, and that was March. And I was like, well, that's it. I'm not going to hit my goals this year. And I had a conversation. Now, when COVID hit, again, I lead a community of, now it's like 4,000 women in my Facebook group, right? So, so when COVID hit and things started going crazy and nobody knows what's happening, I started going live in my Facebook group kind of daily, as much as I could, just to say, hey, I'm here, talk to me about what you guys are feeling and thinking and whatever. And bringing in friends of mine, any friends I could find who might have something good to share. So I brought in a very good friend of mine who helps process the effect of trauma on the body. She deals in somatic healing. And I really wanted her to come and talk about like how to take care of your body, your physical body during all this craziness. And right before we went live, she and I were just talking a little bit. And I said to her, I thought I was going to make $300,000. That's clearly not going to happen. And she said to me, Abby, I think we can all still hit our goals this year, but the path is going to look completely different to what we imagine. Yeah. I loved that so much. And I told everyone about it all year long. And that's exactly what happened. The path to $300,000 looked completely different to anything I could have imagined back in January. But I got there and I beat that number in the end. And so
Yes.
that's one thing. Like that's one thing. I love that concept of, we don't know what the path is going to look like, but
Yeah.
we can still keep moving forward. So that's one thing. The other thing that I would say is, when you're feeling overwhelmed, and again, I work with moms, and who knows overwhelm better than a mom? And where has the brunt of the burden fallen during COVID? It's on moms. How many moms have lost their jobs and have been forced out of the workplace during COVID? How many women are really, really struggling right now? And when you are in that place and everything feels overwhelming, the worst thing you can do to yourself is start beating yourself up. Well, I'm not being consistent in pitching 60 new clients a day, because you're setting an insane goal. Stop saying you're going to pitch 60 new clients every day and focus on pitching one new client every day. Because if you can be consistent with one small thing every single day, that's going to be a lot at the end of the month, at the end of the quarter, at the end of the year. That's going to make a huge difference. Whereas if you say, well, I'm going to hit this huge goal every day, and then the first day you don't do it, then the next day you're like, well, I'll just do twice as much. It's like when you put off that term paper in college, you're right, I'm going to write one page every day. Okay, I'm going to write 2 pages today. Okay, I'm going to write all 15 pages in the next hour and a half. Like, it's not, you're not do it. It's not going to go well. So
Not happening.
Yeah, you just adding pressure and pressure and pressure. Live scenario of that, like a prime scenario of what you just mentioned, is we had a presentation last weekend at the event called Podfest, and we knew this from like a month ago, and I was responsible for writing the presentation. Guess what? The night before, I ended up going to bed at 4 a.m. in the morning, finishing the presentation, right? Instead of having those goals of, let me work on it a little bit every single day for that month leading to the presentation. So I put all that stress on me and all that pressure. And usually when I get all that pressure, I get a pimple like in the middle of my forehead. So that entire week, I had a pimple in the middle of my forehead. So I come in and my brother's like, what's happening in your life? Like, he already knows I'm like a pimple on the forehead, right? So, but yeah, what you mentioned is so important, to be clear in our goals, but first understand that the path is unknown. Like, we don't know the path, but we know the immediate challenge that we'd have, and we can set up small but actionable steps that we can actually accomplish so we don't get overwhelmed. That is so important.
Yeah, I love, Abby, how you do the breakdown too. First of all, congrats on the amazing community that you have too, and they're being so responsive, giving you feedback, and I'm sure like they're getting incredible value. So if you're listening right now and you want to be part of the community, we're gonna leave all the links right in the description. All you gotta do is go there and click it and be a part of that. But I can relate, right? Because we were talking to our coach this morning, right? And we're last week we felt like we hit a ceiling, right? Not a ceiling like, but on anxiety, operations, like what's next, right? For the last year, it's been like a very clear path. But last week, at least personally to me, it was like, man, like I feel like we're not in that path anymore. Like, what's happening, right? Like, do we need to reassess? Like, what are the conversations that we need to have, right? So this morning, that's why we were chatting with our coach, and we're like, okay, let's reset. Like, what are your personal objectives? What is the business objective? What is, like, let's get really specific, right?
Yep.
To make sure that we do that, right? Because sometimes as business owners or operators in the business, right, we're like maybe in it, right, too much, and then we have to like go out and separate ourselves a little bit and reassess, okay, where are we, right? Are we okay? And then going back to reverse engineer those goals. Like you said, instead of 60 calls, why don't we work on the first one, right? So and then put them in your calendar, booked it in to it, like, okay, what is my step? Is it cold calling? Is it prospecting? What is it, right? Like, what's that look like for you? And that diminishes the anxiety big time. As soon as we jumped off the call, I was like, I feel so much lighter, right? Emotionally lighter is so good, and just that inner peace. So incredible that you guys are working with that on your process as well, to be able to do it. Now I'm very curious, because we had a transition from freelancer to business owner, right? And that for us was like very marked. It was like right there. So I would love for you to explain to us a little bit of the challenges that you encounter from transitioning from freelancer to a business owner, and if somebody is in that position, what should they expect? What can they do to kind of continue with the momentum and don't crash against the first wall that they might see? Because we crash against like walls. Yeah.
No, I totally understand that. So it's really funny because if I look back, I'm on record. Like I'm actually out there on podcasts from, like from 2017, 2018, saying things like, well, I don't want to have a 6-figure business. That's too much responsibility. And now it's like, well, who was that girl? Like, what was she talking about? I think that was a big thing. Like, it really scared me to even do something like take on a VA, because I'm suddenly responsible for a portion of someone else's income. And that just felt like an enormous responsibility. I'm already trying to keep these 5 alive and like maintain a marriage and like all of those things. Like, there's a lot going on, and all of this extra responsibility felt really heavy and just it was scary. So I think that acknowledging that, number one, is really important, that there is a difference between being a freelancer. For me right now, I think a big challenge this year is going from like being a business owner to being the CEO of a company. That's a shift that I'm looking to make this year as I scale towards 7 figures. And that's, that's all, like, there's always going to be a challenge. Imposter syndrome doesn't ever go away. You're never gonna like wake up one morning and be like, well, I've done all the growth I need to do. I'm done growing now. Like, it doesn't work like that. It's a constant process. It's a constant willingness to work on yourself. I think for the big thing is when you transition from freelancer to business owner, there's going to be a lot more personal development involved. I think that as a freelancer, you don't necessarily have to do all of that digging and knowing yourself. I mean, sure, it's going to help you, absolutely, but you don't have to do that. If you want to be a successful business owner, you absolutely, like, that's not an optional thing. That's a thing that you absolutely must be willing to do, or you cannot be successful. So,
do you remember? And thank you. Do you remember like a first like personal development story? Because I'm as you're explaining this, I'm going back. I'm like, when was like the first time that I actually was conscious that this is something that I need to do on a regular basis, right? Because you mentioned that like it's not that we stop growing. No, like we had to accept that that's gonna be a process that's coming forever, right? We gotta continue to do that. And to me, that was really challenging to understand at first, right? It's like, right, you get to this point, you're like, but I don't want to spend the money.
I don't want to, but I did that last week. So.
I know, and it was really helpful, right, to make peace with that and be like, it's just gonna make me a better person. I'm gonna grow in different ways. Do you remember when that happened to you?
It's a really good question. So even before I was a business owner, when I was just a freelancer, I've always been a reader, right? Because I'm a writer, so I love reading, I love words, I love books. And so I read Carol Dweck's Mindset way before it was like popular, way before people had podcasts about it. So all of those books, I love them. That's the stuff that I read for fun, because I'm a really exciting person. And so when I started teaching my own students about mindset, I think that was like a little bit of I'm gonna, like, this isn't gonna end. Like, I'm gonna have to keep doing this stuff. But honestly, I think this past year, 2020, was a big breakthrough for me too. I probably invested $30,000 in mindset coaching for myself. Like, I felt like I had the business stuff under control. I knew what I was doing there. I felt like, okay, I know how to get clients. I know how to get students. I know how to do these technical things, but I don't always feel at home in my body. And I don't always feel like there were major money mindset things that you come up against when a woman starts making more than her husband. Like, that's, there's stuff that comes up. Like, my husband's awesome, and he's like, please go do your thing. That's amazing. But still, like, it changes the dynamic in a relationship. It brought up a lot of feelings for me. So I spent I spent a lot of money exploring that. I spent a lot of time with amazing coaches who helped me work on that. And I think that for me, like that was like oh yeah, I'm actually not ever going to finish working with coaches specifically. Like there's always going to be someone who I'm looking to help, someone I can pay to listen to me. So, someone who will help me like dig at the stuff that I'm trying to push down. So yeah.
Yeah.
I love it.
I think there's a clear path that I've noticed for entrepreneurs, right? That when they start, maybe as freelancers,
Mhm.
they look for courses, and the resources that they look are like YouTube videos and all the stuff.
Mhm.
That yes, they can be extremely helpful and they can take you from A to B, but then you don't do it at the speed that you want to.
Right.
So then you start seeking for other alternatives, which is okay. Well, maybe a group coaching is better for me, right? And they start going there, and they see the value of putting themselves in an environment of success, right? They see the value of proximity, the power of proximity, and that they are becoming successful at a faster pace than before. And then they
Right.
might go, wow, what if I form part of a mastermind or a one-on-one coaching? And then you realize that is the fastest way to learn, and you don't want to go back ever again to courses.
Exactly.
And,
That is pretty much
do the
exactly
videos.
the trajectory.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'll throw the ball back to you, Fonzie, in a second. But I want to share a story. The other day, I was on the phone with my dad, right? We adore our dad. I feel like we need to bring him to the show at some point because we've shared so many stories of him. But I'm driving back home, and he's like, "Hey, how you guys doing?" And we on the business side of things and the things with the team, right? And he's like, "Oh, that's so cool." And then he goes like, "Hey, by the way, I sent you an email." And every time he says that, like we cringe. We're like, "Oh my god," because they're like 7 pages, and it's like all fully detailed, right? And he's like, "I sent you an email."
He writes an email to send us a Word document with what he wants to say.
Yes, yeah, that. So on that Word document, he goes and he shares this link of somebody at a couple that coaches. We're not familiar with them, right? And he goes like, "You guys should buy their course." And I'm like, "Well, thank you, but why? Like, why should we buy the course?" Right? And then he goes into this long explanation of things that he thought that they were happening here. So I'm like, "Hey, Dad, let me tell you, we're not there, right? Like I'm not going to invest 1 cent in another course, at least today, because I need the proximity side of things. I need fast. I need the commitment. Like if I'm making this investment, it means that I need to be paying attention. If I purchase that course and I don't have that pressure, I'm not going to execute. I learned that about myself, right? I've invested in so many and they just sit there, right? And it was very interesting because his mindset was very different, right? Because I mean, we grew up in Venezuela, different country, right? And for him, that was like, but why? Why would we pay so much more money to be like there? Like, and it was a crash, right? And I'm trying to explain to him like, hey, I learned. We've invested in so many of these, but the second we started investing a little bit more money, not a little bit more money, like a lot more money, like especially like when we invested with Steve and Offerlive last year, right? That was the first big investment that we made. And recently with another mastermind and a couple of coaches, right? It's like, oh my gosh, people are like, why? But guess what? That puts us in a position that we need to pay attention and execute. Yeah. And then proximity is massive because then the network expands and then you meet amazing people and then it just repays itself, right? So yeah, sorry. Super big part.
Isn't it so cool too? Like when you look back at yourself and you're like, I remember when spending $9.97 on a course was like, I had to think about it for a couple of days. I wanted to email the creator. And now I'm like, 15 grand. Absolutely. Here, let me wire you. Like,
we remember when $100 for an event was like, it was literally, Abby, I'm not lying to you. It was a 4-hour discussion from Miami to Jacksonville where we live. If we should expend that money to go to the first event ever that we went live.
Yeah.
It
was... There were a lot of mental issues that needed to be worked out, right?
Important. I think that's a part of the process. I think that, I mean, I see a lot of people who, like people who will just buy any course that's out in front of them. And like you said, you don't do things with them. And that to me is always a shame. Like the saddest thing to me is if somebody enrolls in my program and doesn't do anything. And you can see on the back end, like they haven't logged in and they haven't watched the videos. And I'm like,
Yeah.
why? Like, it's such a good course.
Yeah.
And look, absolutely. And look, for those listening and watching right now, like if you're in that position, I just want to clarify that we're not against that position, because we were in that position too. The thing that separates you is execute, right? If the possibility that you have is to purchase a course like that, because maybe there's something else, like monetary wise is completely impossible to invest in the high end, right? Which for us was about 4 years, right? Go out and invest in something that you really believe in, but pay attention. Like, see the videos, like implement, ask questions, be part of the community, be involved, because guess what? That action is going to lead to results, and then those results you can reinvest back in, right? And that's what we noticed, for example, with a couple of challenges that we joined, the ones that we're involved in every single day, right? That we were there watching, consuming, executing, we saw those results, and immediately we reinvested in continuous education, right? And then you can continue to move to a place where then you can freely invest in those coaches that, Abby, that you're saying, or the ones that we're telling you about as well.
Yeah.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. You can do a lot with even a $37 product. You can do a lot with people's free content. It really is a matter of implementation. It's not just consuming content. It's really implementing it. It's really taking action on it. So yeah.
Absolutely. And going off of the topic of growth, like the reason why I brought that kind of like sequence of learning is because of how fast you can put yourself in a position of growth, right? At the end of the day, like you said, it's all about taking action. But now we understand fastest way to grow is to put yourself, as close as you can to the source of that information. So you're talking about all these doubts that not doubts, but all these questions that started coming into your life after you reach a certain point, right? Because you reach now new territory, that unexplored territory in your life, that of course comes with a bunch of questions. And now, how do I get those questions fast? Let me invest in someone that already has those answers, right? And they're gonna help me decipher quicker. Now, I think this is a really cool point for transitioning into some more of copywriting, because we have been talking about false beliefs and questions that we have in our mind, and all these challenges that might be presented to us when we want to make a decision towards something, right? Whether that is buying a course, buying coaching, buying one-on-one. And copywriting can help people bridge that gap, right? Like, you are helping them solve the questions in their minds and their doubts, so they can take an action forward towards something that is going to be beneficial for them, right? Of course, I don't want to convince someone to buy my course if they're not going to benefit from it. First of all, I don't want to convince anybody. I just want them to be sure that they're making the right decision when they're investing with their team, right? And I'm sure it's the same with you. So can you guide us a little bit about the principles of copywriting when it comes to, helping others?
Yeah, absolutely. So you said a couple of really important things. One, the principles of copywriting when it comes to helping others. So I've built my own business on really 2 core principles. Maybe even we could say 2.5. Okay. So number 1 is don't lie, right? Like, tell the truth, right? And the number 2 is treat people the way you want to be treated, meaning don't send an email you wouldn't want to have in your own inbox. Don't write a sales page that you wouldn't want to confront on the internet. And then the half, I would say, is something that I tell my students all the time, is building a successful business is about helping people. Okay. So if we start from those things, and really don't lie is a big one. And don't lie means don't say the webinar is live if it's recorded. Don't say the sale is 2 days if the product is always on sale. Don't say that your thing does XYZ if it doesn't. Like, don't lie ever, because the moment you do, you're going to break trust. And once you've lost trust, go ahead, try to get it back. Good luck. So we start from there. So personally, I only work with clients when I believe in what they're selling. I won't take on a client. So my own personal bias is I won't I won't help somebody who says they're going to cure cancer with, orange juice, because chemotherapy saved my son. So no,
Yeah.
I don't take jobs from big tobacco. Right. And this was true even when I was a freelancer. I was offered a contract once with a large company, but the work that I saw them doing that went they were anti-breastfeeding. They were very pro formula because they happen to sell formula for babies. And I have no issue with formula, but I didn't like their anti-breastfeeding stance. It really turned me. So I was like, no. And my husband was like, that's so much money. And I was like, I'm not writing it. So, so and today I'm very fortunate because I can really hand pick my clients. So it's only when somebody tells me, what is the transformation you provide? And I'm listening and I'm like, yes, I am 100% on board with this. Absolutely.
Yeah.
This is going to change lives and have an impact. Then I can get on board. And then you mentioned something else about, being the specific and the personal feelings that we have. And I think that that's a really important key to effective copywriting. The specificity of a story is what allows us to see ourselves in that story. And that sounds counterintuitive because people are like, well, if I tell my very, very personal and specific story, nobody else will be able to relate to that. And okay, again, I'm going to date myself here, but one of the examples that I like to give, there's a book and a movie, The Joy Luck Club by Amy Tan. I don't know if you guys have seen it, but it's kind of a girly book and movie, and it's about Chinese American women and their mothers. So Chinese mothers who then came to America and had daughters, and the daughters are now grown. So it's about these very specific relationships, and it's set in San Francisco, and it's these very specific, Chinese American relationships, second generation, and all of this stuff that's going on, but the specificity of that story and the food and the relationships and the things that they say and the way that they talk, that's where everybody can read it and say, oh my God, my aunt does exactly that. Oh my God, I remember when my grandmother, you can pull out the things that really do apply to you. So it's the same thing in copywriting. Just today, I had an email in my inbox from somebody pitching me something, and we kind of gently turned her down. And then she posted in a group, I pitched something, it didn't go the way I wanted, but my pitch was very specific, so I don't know if I should post it here for feedback. And I said, it's not you should, because I know you think it's very that's what everybody else is doing too. We all think we're unique and special, and we are, but we're also not. We are unique and special, but our problems are not, let's say. We all have the same problems and issues, we're all we're not sleeping well when we have toddlers, and we don't like it when we're using StreamYard instead of Zoom because there's no make me look better filter on StreamYard, right?
No worries. Editor, please take note. No, I'm kidding. You look incredible.
I rely heavily on that Zoom filter.
You don't have to worry about that. You look incredible.
Thank you. So no, but we all have we think that we're unique and special, and we're really we're just not. And so writing about those unique and specific things is what allows other people to see themselves in that writing. So the more specific you can get when you're telling, when you're setting the stage, don't just say I know you're thinking about enrolling in this course. Really set the stage for them. It's late at night. Everyone else is asleep. The only light in your house is the blue glow from your laptop. And you're clicking back and forth between the sales page and your bank balance, and you're biting your lip and you're wondering, can I really swing this? What's going to happen if I make this investment? What happens in 2 weeks if I don't start earning money right away? Get into those fears and those, and my husband's sleeping next to me. Is he going to be angry at me when he wakes up? Does this mean that my kid can't go to Girl Scouts? What? Get into that stuff. Dig in on it, because that's what everybody is, there's a person on the other end of that screen on that email, and that's what they're thinking and feeling. And when you get specific like that, that's when people read email and go, oh, are you in my house right now? So
I love that, right? And something I came across recently was the fact of using your inner monologue, right? Like
Mhm.
actually writing down what is happening in your mind. Because like you said, yes, we are all unique and happy creatures. Yes, but at the same time, we are not that unique, and we have the same issues. And sometimes we're actually having the same inner thoughts or very similar inner
Very,
thoughts.
very.
So the situation that you're describing right now, like, oh, what is my husband gonna think about this? Right? I'm laying in bed, all worried. I cannot sleep.
Mhm.
And I'm pretending to read a novel when maybe inside of that novel I actually have a business book. I don't know, whatever, right? Like those inner thoughts is what makes you relatable with
Yeah.
other people, because they're like, wow, that person thinks exactly how I do. They must
Exactly.
know how I feel, and if they manage to cross that bridge, right, close that gap, maybe
Yes.
they'll be able to help me go to the other side.
And you call it the inner monologue. And I would say get that inner monologue out in the sense of when I am writing, when I'm drafting, I don't necessarily sit at my desk. I walk around talking to myself, and I take my phone and I start recording, and I walk around the house talking to myself. And my kids are like, "Oh God, she's doing it again." So it has a special benefit there that it will embarrass your teenage children, which win for mom. But but beyond that, it's good because I'll do it with a recording. I use otter.ai, which is machine transcription. So, it'll give me a real-time transcription of what I'm saying. And then I can go back and see, was there something really good in there that I can pull out and expand on and draw out and tease out? I record conversations that I have, on Zoom. I record conversations with my students with their permission, of course. And then I will play that back and I will listen to the way they talk about things and the things that come up again and again in conversation. And this is something that I make my clients do. And at times, they'll have the conversations with their clients. Sometimes I'll tell them, I'm going to have the conversation with your people, or I'm going to be on that call taking notes and helping you guide that conversation so that we can get what we need. But it's really about not being afraid to talk out loud, hear how things sound, and to really, really listen to the way your ideal clients are talking about things, the language that they actually use, not the language that you think they use or the language that you wish they used. And while we're at it, let's just ditch that whole ideal client avatar thing, because I hate that. And instead, let's talk about a real person. So when I'm right, like I don't let my clients talk to me about ideal clients. I'm like, forget ideal. Talk to me about a specific person who you did this transformation for. So tell me about Jamie, or tell me about Steven, or tell me about Dana, but the real person, not like your Google images person who you stuck all over your wall and you know what she drinks at Starbucks. Nobody cares what she drinks at Starbucks. What I care about is like when she goes to Starbucks, is she like, I can't really afford Starbucks, but I need to look good, so I'm gonna drink it anyway. Like that's what I care about. So like I need to know that from an actual person. So like I think my biggest tip for anyone who's trying to write more effectively is forget the ideal client avatar. Start writing stuff to a real person who you actually know, and have spoken to in real life. And that's going to make the writing so much more real and relatable. And that's really, I'm going to say that's a really critical thing.
Wow. Yeah. That is a great tip. Write to someone real that you already know and you've talked to. That is so key. And I think we haven't been able to define it the way that you just did, but we ditched the avatar sheets and all the stuff a very long time ago. Yes, that is something that I don't know. For example, for us personally, is like content calendars, right? Like we are like, man, like content calendars, like just listen to what the people you're talking to are saying and then create content around that, right? We have a little battle with content calendars.
I wouldn't call it a little battle. Like it would match. I'm sorry if you're listening. Content calendars don't work. Call us. Anyway.
But yeah, I love that. So how do you go about digging? Because you mentioned, and I wrote it here, right? You record, you play, and then you distill the information. And actually, while you were talking about that, I remember a while ago we came up with this like theory that we call it the whiskey theory, which is to make whiskey you got to distill it multiple times so it has a higher grade of alcohol, right? Well, I feel like ideas are the same. For it to be stronger, you need to distill it multiple times, right? Like these conversations that you're having, you are listening and again and again and again, so you can grab the commonalities between all these conversations, so that a light bulb lights up and you're like, okay, this is something that I can write about that is going to resonate with, the ideal customer, the real person that I'm talking to on the other side of the screen. So how do you go about distilling those ideas? What are the questions that we should be asking to the people that we're talking to actually find out what are those pains, or what are that inner monologue that they're having inside of their head?
Right. So I think it's actually less about the questions that you ask and how well you can listen when they're talking. So, like you've got your standard questions, like if I could wave a magic wand and make your problems go away, like what would that look like, right? It doesn't matter how you ask that question. And you can ask that question in all kinds of ways. You can ask that question by doing a Facebook Live. You can ask that question with a little post on Instagram. It's really about listening to the answer that you're getting from people, and not taking that answer and molding it into what you want the answer to be. So I'll give you an example from my own writing recently. My students struggle with getting their first client, and typical advice is, for them to add value in Facebook groups, and to be on social media and to build a website and to do these things. And when I listen to them talk and I listen to how impossible all of those things were for them, also, let's just not go into that whole adding value in Facebook groups thing, because hello, 2013. So when I started really listening to what they were struggling with, they're like, I just can't get my first client. So for me, writing content that spoke to like growing your business doesn't help them if they can't get their first client. So I had to really dig in and listen to, well, what are the things that you have tried, and how has that not worked, and why has that not worked, and what has happened, and how did that make you feel? I mean, it's really like listening to that and really hearing that. I put together an entire new framework for them just by listening. I gave them a very specific framework that they could then take and use to get that very first client in the door. And to me, that's the kind of thing that only happens when you're willing to listen and when you're not trying to force your answer. Like, it's like when you're having a conversation at a cocktail party and you're not listening, you're just like waiting for your turn to talk. So stop doing that. Instead of that, actually listen to the person and just soak it in, let them talk, and people will like you way more anyway, because they'll be like, oh my God, you're so understanding. And you'll be like, I didn't actually say anything, but sure. So.
I love it. And, I would love to expand a little bit on it, right? Like as you fulfill, let's say you're a service, right? Like we are, right? Like your current customers are still going to bring you those questions and those issues and those problems, right? Like for us, for example, is the issue of the distribution, right? How do you distribute high volume content? Right. So we're like, okay, let's build a system for that. And we did. And then they can distribute 55 pieces in 20 minutes, right? And it's like, what? Once you remove that, then there's so much more room for opportunity to help, to serve, right? So that's really important, is how we listen, right? And especially if you're listening right now and you have a community, or if you have a group of people, if you serve a group of people, start having those conversations, right? The answer is right in front of us, right? And at first it might be challenging to find it and to see it, but I think just this conversation with you, Abbi, like shines a light into those conversations that we need to have, and more importantly, listen to those conversations, because it's going to give you the ammo that you need to improve.
One of the first things that I do with a new client when I'm going to be writing stuff for them, I have them put me in their Facebook group so that I can spy, basically, so that I can listen to conversations. I'm not interested in posting anything. I'm reading through, what are the questions that are being asked? Are they being answered? Like, when they're asking questions, is my client doing her job correctly and answering those questions? What's happening there? But what are the questions that are being asked again and again? What are the real struggles? Because sometimes we're so, in the weeds in our business that we kind of miss what's right in front of us, right? And you need that outside person to come in and say, oh, actually, if you noticed, like your entire community is begging for this thing. Like if you created a workshop around this, you would sell out in 10 minutes, right? So there's a lot of that. It's really about being willing to listen and to not force so often, like we have our own ideas. I want to create this, and it's not at all what your audience wants or needs. And so like we can put all this time and energy into doing that. And so they'll ask them what they want, and they'll tell you, even if you aren't asking them, you'll see what they want if you know how to look for it, if you know how to listen for it.
So okay, I'm gonna play a little devil's advocate here. For those that maybe don't have a community, right, where they have a group of their people that they're actually helping in there, that are willing to have that conversation one-on-one or within the group, and you start seeing these trends of things they might need help with. How do they go about finding out about these problems so they can, create content around that, or establish new conversations, new connections?
Yeah, well, this is where we go back to building a successful business is about helping people. So and one of the things that I tell my own students is if you're unwilling to talk to people, you're not going to have a successful business. You've got to be willing. So like, when a lot of us start businesses where we're shy and imposter syndrome and, well, why would anybody want to listen to me? Don't think about it like that. Like think about, you have a skill and you have something that you want to be offering, right? So you have some general idea of, well, I can help this kind of person do this. So get yourself on a call with this kind of person and say, I just, this is going to help me. I want to give you 30 minutes to just ask me your most pressing questions. I would also like to have about 10 minutes of your time to ask you some questions. I'm going to record this. I'll give it to you afterwards. You're basically giving them free coaching. And if you approach it from the point of I'm giving them free coaching, I promise that you're also getting massive value from it. It is worth giving your time. It's worth even compensating them with an Amazon gift card, whatever, if you can, when we ever get to the point where we can take people out for meals again, like that kind of thing. But because you will get so much out of it. The first time, okay, I sold my course, Writing for Money, before I wrote it. Because I'm smart. And so I had a webinar and I, described the course and I pitched the course and I enrolled 13 women in it. And then I had like 2 weeks to get the first week done. So what did I do with that 2 weeks? Everybody who enrolled in the course got a free pre-course coaching call where I asked them questions like, what do you most hope to learn in this course? And they told me, and then I knew what to write in the course. So it was really awesome. And then at the end of the course, I did another coaching call with everybody, to help them move forward. And what did you most get out? What did you feel the course was missing? So they were absolutely getting benefit. I answered any questions that they had, but I recorded all of that. And it was amazing. I mean, prior to building out the course, they told me exactly what they wanted it to cover. And then we ran the course and they were like, oh my God, this is exactly what I wanted to learn. I'm like, wow, that's crazy. So I literally teach the same strategy when working with, I have a workshop called How to Delight Your Clients. And what I tell my students, freelance writers, is ask your client, what will delight you when I come back with it as the finished product, and let them describe it to you, and then just do it. And then when you bring it to them, they literally say, oh my God, this is amazing. This is exactly what I wanted. And it's like, yeah, it is. Cause I asked you and you told me. So we make this so much harder than it has to be. We make it so difficult, and we spend so many angsty hours, pacing and not sleeping and stress eating potato chips and all of those things. And we don't have to. If we would just listen to people, it would be so much easier.
Wow. Abbi, thank you. I mean, yeah, what you're saying is pure gold, right? Like I'm going through my head and I've seen sparks of those scenarios that you've shared, here and there, but they're not systematic, right? And so that's why you see me looking down on taking copious notes, because I'm like, I need to implement this like as soon as possible. Especially we're about to launch the Content Momentum, right? Class, right? Soon, very soon. And there's a lot of stuff that we've seen from clients and the people in our community that they want to learn, but we're definitely going to be doing the pre-course coaching call 100%. And if you're listening and you want to be a part of that, just let us know. Slide into those DMs. But thank you. I mean, like, this has been incredible. Like, I know we could talk to you like for like 3 days straight.
Totally.
We should like roll this out into the weekly huddle that we have with the Content is Profit Facebook group. So what is a good action point for somebody? And I wrote something here, but maybe you have a different idea. A good action point for somebody that's trying to gain that momentum, right? They're in that freelance content, gaining that momentum, freelance, starting to be a business owner, transitioning into the content side of things, making it more consistent. What is something that you would recommend for them to do?
Yeah. Well, I think that if you're trying to make that transition from freelancer to business owner, I think a great way to get started with that is to think about what is a premium service that you can offer clients that they need every single month. So this gives you recurring revenue. And when you focus on a premium service, and like for me, when I started only doing email sequences and sales pages, I was only doing those. So I got really good at them in a short amount of time, and I was able to charge more for them. I was able to create a system for writing them and delivering them so I could block out my calendar. So now I can do things in a theoretical non-COVID world, like go on vacation and still get my work done on time. And that's really cool. So I would say it's focus on creating a premium service and something that clients need every single month, every single week, whatever it is, so that you can set up those recurring revenue contracts and build out systems and processes to make it easy and fun for you to deliver the work.
Thank you. Thank you.
Love it.
And thank you, because we've mentioned this many times. Thank you so much. That's also how we started. That's how we finally nailed it.
That's how we jump from being freelancers to business owners.
Yes.
There you go. There you go. You got it.
And if you're listening right now, you're in a position where you're like, hey, that might be very scary. Go ahead. Take a leap. Like, it's so worth it. It's so worth it. We've had so many conversations with people that are building their own platforms, as in shows or interview other people. And I'm like, what a better way to have those conversations and then transition into, hey, how can I serve you? This is my premium service. So, so exciting. Thank you, Abbi, for mentioning that. So good. I'm excited.
Yeah, no, I can tell.
Yes. Yes, let's go. All right. All right. Favorite question of the show, Abbi. Where will you be? Where will you be if you did not start publishing? Whatever that means to you.
I guess for you will be writing those emails.
Yeah, I mean, I would be sad. I'm not sure if I would be here, honestly. And that's really sad and scary. I wouldn't be the same person. I'm going to cry. I wouldn't be the same person. I wouldn't have the same, I love my kids and I love my husband, but I was in such a bad place. And I don't know that I would have been able to I'm really going to cry. I don't know that I would have been able to get myself out of it on my own. I really don't. I think that it was so connected to creating community, in the sense of like putting my words and thoughts and ideas out in the world and getting responses from people really kept me going. I'm also not like a pretty girl when I cry. So, wow, that was deep. Thanks so much for that, you guys.
No, thank you so much for sharing.
Thank you. Yes. I mean, yeah, we often say we ask this question for us, right? To keep us moving too, because publishing for us changed everything. Same thing. Like, it is a different kind of publishing. It is the show. It is more visual, but at the same time, it's putting those thoughts into words and getting it out there through, for us, has been Facebook Live and the show and these interviews and any interaction that we have. For you, it takes the shape of writing, and look at the impact that it created for you and your family. And we can't wait to go meet your kiddos and
yes.
share some time out there in Israel. I love it.
Yeah, thank you so much, Abbi. This was amazing, and thank you for sharing this answer the way you did. Because
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. This was a lot of fun.
Thank you. Okay, Abby, where can people find you? Where can people connect with you? Where do we send them if they're interested in your world?
Sure. Come on over to successfulfreelancemom.com. And I am on Instagram as @Abbi Perets. And I've got a Facebook group called Successful Freelance Writing Moms. You don't have to be a mom, but you do have to identify as a woman in order to join.
Yes.
Oh,
Sorry, Fonzie.
Rough, I know.
I was about to go join the group. It's okay. It's okay, Abby.
Maybe we can convince Kate to.
Hey, we can still be friends and collaborate in other ways. I'm definitely going to follow you on Instagram, and I'm going to read what you post in there so I can learn from the master and just move forward with their copywriting skills.
All right. Again, thank you. Wow, this was so fun. With that said, guys, thank you so much for tuning into the Content Profit Podcast. Go ahead, subscribe, smash that subscribe button, and follow us on social media at BizBrosCo.
That is right. And if you find this episode impactful and you want to help somebody else move closer to their goal, please don't forget to share this episode and leave a 5-star review. Thank you.
Bye, guys.